a really nice section that we actually have today because it's very much South African context and it's things that we can actually relate to. So I think that like today we actually are going to have quite a nice session. Um, Joseph, I think you are in the wrong class. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, nice. Even number of people here. So we are actually going to talk about governance today in quite a bit of detail. So I will basically show you guys what we are going to cover. So I just must share the screen. Okay, so basically what we are going to be looking at today is we're going to look at public sector organizations. We're going to explain the concept of e-government. They also call e-government e-governance, guys, so it's the same thing. And we're going to discuss the strategies adopted by our various e-governments. So we're going to look at mostly South African context because it's something that we can relate to. So I will go through some of the concepts with you and then we can discuss um, certain things as well because it is quite relatable. So what are public sector organizations? And in your textbook, they define it as the public sector comprises the general government sector plus all public corporations, including the central bank. Now, of course, this is taken from a very much international perspective, and I think they're dealing mostly with the UK in terms of looking at this definition over here. The second part of it refers more to, I would say, our local context. So, simply put, a public sector organization is one whose ownership, funding, and operation is by the government or one of its agencies. And if you take a look at the right hand side of the slide, we see our favorites. Oh, well, ones that you would actually relate to. We've got Eskom, Telkom, South African Airways. I know I put the most controversial ones probably on the slide, but it'll give you an idea of what to look at. I will also provide a link that lists pretty much all our state-owned entities um, in the notes section of the slide. So check it out. It will show you basically every public sector organization in South Africa, and that is from our government website because we actually do have quite an awesome e-government website, and we are going to be looking at that as well. Okay, so before I move on to the next part, so basically, uh, these companies are state-owned and the thing about them is they are government funded. So they're not really in things for profits, okay? Oh, well, they're not meant to be in the game for profits, really. Um, so in terms of governance, basically your government funds these organizations to provide services to the public. And I'm going to talk about distinctive factors between your uh, public sector organizations and maybe the slight differences between what your private sector would do as well. So there is a reason I put a logo of SARS and picture of tax on the right hand side of the slide, and I will get to it now. So if we have to think about public sector organizations and what their goals would be, their goals would be very different to your private sector organizations because private sector organizations' goal is to get the competitive advantage so that they can get profits. Your public sector, on the other hand, doesn't have a profit motive. They don't have competitive pressures either. So if you look at Telkom or Eskom, basically they are monopolies. They don't really have a competitor. You've also got a greater variety of stakeholders, and their goals can differ. So, for example, you've got taxpayers, you've got citizens, you've got other public sector organizations, and even private sector organizations. And each of these stakeholders or sets of stakeholders have differing, conflicting goals. So as individuals, we require efficient and effective provision from our public services, but at the same time, we wouldn't like to have our tax burden, or we'd like our tax burden to be minimized. So we have to basically try and, well, government more like it, has to strike a balance between um, providing these efficient services carried out by your public sector organizations and minimizing the tax burden. Also, because citizens are paying taxes for public sectors or public sector organizations, if you like, there's a big uh, role the public play in terms of scrutiny. So they criticize these public sector organizations quite a great deal. Sometimes it is justified, especially if we do look at the cases of South African Airways, if we look at Eskom. So I know what I'm saying is slightly controversial, but yeah, I mean, the public are entitled to scrutiny as they are paying taxes. There's also the whole political dimension that comes into play, because if another government gets re-elected, or elected rather, and they come into power, of course, there could be a great change to some of these organizations in terms of how they operate, in terms of who is in charge, in terms of what goes on in terms of the funding. So quite a lot to think about, but this is basically, these points are what is distinctive about your public sector organizations when you compare it to private sector organizations. And I actually want to talk through that point a little bit more in terms of exactly what we can think about in terms of the whole political dimension. And if we think about other countries, right, and few countries do this, our country personally doesn't. Generally, in our country, if you look at it, the natural resources of the country is owned by private companies. So our gold, diamonds, quite a few of this, our mining primarily is by private companies, right? Now, in general, what some companies do in the world, and I think this is amazing, is the government owns these types of companies. So the government controls the natural resources of the country, and the money that then comes in from those natural resources goes straight to the people. So in other words, what does this mean? It means that healthcare is completely free. It also means that the government provides for you in terms of education being completely free. And when you start college, the government provides you with a flat for X amount of years that you study. And the only time you need to then pay is if you fail a year. So if you fail a year, then you're going to have to obviously pay back. But if you pass, let's say, your degree, straight after you pass your degree, the government provides you housing, right? And they provide you a monthly allowance. And if you then want to get a job to become rich, you can. How does that sound, guys? Does it sound like the ideal world? They are unfair. Yes. Actually, Matthew, I think Algeria does this. Libya used to. There's quite a few, I think, Middle Eastern countries that still do adhere to this. And it's really nice because it means the government is actually looking after the people. Of course, there are pros and cons to that, because quite a few of these countries could be being sort of labeled your dictatorships and stuff. But I actually think that's the best way to go about it. Your natural resources, which is owned by the company, or should be, the country, or should be owned by the country, actually does end up benefiting the people. However, I think if that was the situation in South Africa, if the government owned the natural resources, the issue would then be corruption. So I don't think any of the people would actually get any of the benefits from the natural resources of the country. So yeah, quite a bit to think about in terms of that one. How do you guys think that, how do you guys feel like the government handled the COVID situation? Do you think they handled the COVID-19 situation well? Or do you guys think that they could have done better? At first, okay, so Tane is saying at first. And then what happened, Tane? dot, 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 to be continued. So yeah, a lot can be said for governance in the sense, if you look at a situation like this pandemic and to see exactly how it was handled. So yeah, I guess we'll see. I mean, look, it's not looking great that we like the fifth highest, we have the fifth highest number of cases in the world, but yeah, maybe it'll get better. Who knows? So yeah, those are distinctive qualities about your public sector organizations. And of course, the goal, the one thing we need to remember is the goal is not profit, okay? The goal is providing services. So I am going to go through a little bit of a theory, and we're going to also look at it from the practical point of view, because we want to see how it fits in to the definitions provided in the textbook. So the definition of electronic or e-government is the application of information technology to government processes in order to improve services to constituents. And I like to keep it local. So I have actually put up the URL for our South African government webpage. And we are going to be looking at one or two of the government pages so that I could explain the concepts a little bit better. So the reason for these government websites or e-government websites rather is to improve services, to inform the public. And we are going to look at a few right now. Right, so we've got Home Affairs, we've got gov.za, and I actually really like the layout of the Home Affairs website. Like, it's actually quite a neat layout. It's pretty much, it's not a super busy website. And I like the fact that the navigation's got just so much going on here. So this is cool. Smart card IDs, we can apply online now. Okay, although I don't think that's going to quite happen. And the reason for this is, oh, guys, what happened? The page die. Okay, let's do that again, actually. No, it is working. Sorry guys, you can't apply for your smart ID online because of the lockdown. But I do know that this worked, okay? Okay. So over here, this part of the sites, as I say, I don't like this about government websites, the fact that there's a not secure over here. But the bright side is this part is secured, where you'd probably end up doing your payments. So yeah, by and large, I think this site is really useful because it pretty much provides you with just so much of information. And as I say, I like the way the navigation is done. What do you guys think of the site? Do you guys think it looks awesome? Do you guys think it's useful? It looks all right, yeah. Okay. It doesn't look terrible. Does its bit, right? I actually am really impressed with this website, though. This is our e-governance websites, and usually the the reason they have these e-governance websites generally is information. So it's to inform the public about all the various documentations, all the services provided by the government. So as you can see, the list is quite extensive, to TV and postal services, to, permits for licenses, tax, deregistering businesses, changing registration. So they actually got quite a bit going on in the site. What I also like about it is it's really current. So the first thing they talk about is coronavirus, and also what alert level we are on. And this statistic is really nice and up to date, which means that they are updating the site on quite a regular basis. So that I think is really, really cool. It also shows you all your new documentations, services by the government, newsroom, what's new. They actually have been working on this website for probably over 20 years. So they actually have done good stuff on it. There is also a place on the site, but I can't for the life of me remember where this was, where I think you could actually change the setting so that you could view this page in any of the 11 official languages. So yeah, this is our e-governance or governance website. What do you guys think of our government website? Think it looks good? Think it's useful? Anybody? Better than the first. Yeah. It's got more going on. I think it serves its purpose a little bit better than the first. Oh, government vacancies, guys. That could be quite cool. Guys can get nice jobs here. You can register to apply for a job at the following institutions. That is really cool. Guys, in terms of your career, you would want to work in government. You would get paid a lot. Okay, so that's our basic e-governance website. And of course, it's got subsidiary sites as well. But I do want to talk about this website, which you guys might or might not remember. Do you guys remember this one? The contents being updating is surprising. Yeah. Do you guys remember this website? Oh yeah, Otto. Yep. They're actually talking a lot about the bill that was supposed to be, this is actually supposed to come into play in June 2020, but of course it couldn't happen because of Corona, so they're still pushing to do this. But what I do want to draw your attention to for each point in this website, which I might have mentioned last year, every time you're doing something that's going to connect to a database, the database that you're connecting to is the eNaTIS database, right? So you guys remember this eNaTIS website, which is even worse than the Otto website because it had far less functionality. Anyhow, our national traffic or road traffic offices, or the Road Traffic Bureau, basically has one database, and that database is called eNaTIS. So any information that you're querying from the Otto website is coming from the eNaTIS database, okay? And that is known as government to government, which is what I'm going to talk about in a bit. I'm going to talk about all our different categories that we're going to have, that we are going to happily talk about. So I've shown you guys the two governance websites. We're going to look at what your textbook defines in terms of government to citizen, government to business, government to government, government internal efficiency and effectiveness, and overarching infrastructure. So we're going to talk through this, or I'm going to talk through this rather, so you guys get an idea of what it is. So your e-government applications are very similar to the terminology used for some of the categories that you might be more familiar with: business to consumer, business to business acronyms. But if we have to take a look at the terminology that we've seen here, we've got government to citizen and we've got government to business. So, of course, customer relationship management is a metaphor for government to consumer and government to business, where the focus is on interaction with customers, or citizens or businesses, learning about and meeting their needs through accessible and interactive channels. So the websites that we just looked at, the Home Affairs one, the South Africa.gov website, that would be an example of government to consumer and government to business. We've also got G2G, which is government to government applications, which can be seen as a form of supply chain management with their focus on linking the information flow between various agencies. So these agencies may supply each other with data. So the focus of internal efficiency and effectiveness, or IEE, is akin to enterprise resource planning. So enterprise resource planning would be where you would create an integrated view of data and information, and that would be the main aim for that particular application. And finally, you've got infrastructure or cross-cutting initiatives, which are forms of enterprise application integration, and this focuses on interoperability across departments and agencies. Now, bear in mind, I don't think we're absolutely terrible at this, but we have wasted quite a bit of money on it, right? In other words, with the whole Inatus debacle that we saw last year when we looked at our SIM projects, we wanted all our databases to be one or to be centralized. I don't really know how much that's the case at the moment. Remember, they spent 597 million on centralizing the database and basically having it so that if I was in Pretoria and I wanted to apply for my license in Durban, I could book online for a testing center or to the relevant testing center and get a place. Yeah, at the moment with COVID, it's just weird how they're doing these applications. I think a lot of it is actually primarily online, to be honest. Apparently, I think when you go to the Motor Licensing Bureau now to book your learner's or license, they're not doing eye tests. They want you to bring a note from your optometrist, though, to say that you have had an eye test. So yeah, it's just a very weird, confusing time. So I would assume if they did the system right, it would have been really convenient to book at a time like this for a later date, because nobody really wants to expose themselves so much during this COVID-19 time to going into government offices and stuff. So guys, have any of you had any experiences with this, or do you guys already have your license so you don't have to worry about this anymore in your lives? Well, at least you don't have to worry about, I don't have to worry, yeah. At least you guys don't have to worry about fines either, but you can actually pay your fines, by the way. Where is it? Pay my fine, get a 50% discount, and you go to this external site, which does link to the ARTO database. But this is paycity.co.za. So basically, any fine that you would have, you could actually pay in terms of your vehicles. Oh, even your municipal account. Okay, so this is quite a. I actually like this site. I think the site is quite cool, and it's a trusted site, which is awesome to see. Would you guys use this website to pay your fine? You could even do, oh my gosh, this is cool, vehicle license reminders and renewals. Like, that's really awesome. the fact that you could do it online. I actually didn't know that. So yeah, our governance is actually not doing a terrible job with these things. I think maybe they are putting their money into some of the right things. So we're going to look at two strategies for e-government right now. We're going to look at national e-strategies and national e-government strategies. So we're going to go through this. This is the last bit of theory that we would have for this lecture, which I'm going to just go through with you guys. So this is a model in your textbook on page 148 by Jung and Chai. I could be saying that very wrong. If we have to take a look at this model, what it shows is basically depending on what category your country falls under, it would have the following critical success factors. So if you're an underdeveloped country, for example, one of your main critical success factors would be literacy, because you would be needing to get the people of the country to be computer literate. In other words, be able to use computers and technology to be able to actually access e-governance resources. So these would be basically what you would look at in terms of level 1, in terms of initiation. At level 2, they're looking at things like building infrastructure. That's for your underdeveloped or developing country. Educating the population, okay? Getting help from international corporations. Level 3, you would be looking still at educating the population, but you would be also looking at private public enterprises. You would be looking at partnerships. And at level 4, you would be then looking at privacy and security of your e-governance initiatives. So everything is quite well defined in terms of what the critical success factors, or if you want to even call them goals, would be, depending on what level you are at. So if you had to take a look at our country, South Africa, where do you think we would fall in terms of this model? Hey guys, where do you think we are? Do you guys think we are underdeveloped / developing? Where do you guys see us? I mean, our infrastructure isn't terrible, but I mean, I know some students have told me, some students on the South Coast and far up North Coast as well, have said that they have very bad signal issues still developing. Yes, I agree, Matthew. So they say that Vodacom signal on the South Coast is basically non-existent. And yeah, I mean, as I say, the further out you go, that could be an issue with infrastructure, where cell phone towers are not getting serviced as much, or not as much is being put into the areas far out there, as opposed to your more urban areas, your bigger cities, if you like. So yeah, I would say definitely we are sitting at level 2 in terms of this. I actually do want to show you guys a video just now, but I'm going to go through one more. So this is our national e-strategies model. We've also got a national e-government strategy, which I'm going to also talk through. In terms of your national e-government strategies, these are centered on rolling out e-government and the reform of public sector services. So in your textbook on page 149, figure 6.5 talks about critical success factors for national e-governance strategies. And these would be increasing reach and richness of e-service. So increasing reach, of course, means you want to reach most of your population. So in our country, for example, how would we increase reach? One way to do this is to lower the cost of data. Of course, if more people in the population can have cheaper data, they would be able to access e-government resources much more easily and efficiently. So the second point, increasing citizens' mind share in e-engagement. So that means you have to make your platforms more ideal to interact with. So take a look at your Home Affairs website. Take a look at the South African government website, which I spoke about earlier, and think about if you are to engage with these websites. Um, would it be an insightful experience? Would it be difficult to navigate? Is the information presented clear? So, yeah, some things to think about in terms of engagement with these types of websites. You've also got enhancing capacity and synergy in government. So this refers to creating synergy through shared data, processes, and systems. So it also allows you to foster innovative exploitation of the Infocom public sector. So this is where, at this point over here, it's where you'd be able to get innovative with sharing information. This would be across government departments, across different government agencies, so that they would have more access to different types of information. And then you've got enhancing national competitive advantage. And this would be where you would showcase and promote e-government solutions, where you would be able to actually be able to solve problems on a national level with your e-governance strategy. Yeah, with your e-governance strategy, also you can showcase your natural resources and, of course, import some of these in a very effective way to actually achieve competitive advantage. So in terms of your import export, you could be getting a lot of money from that, and of course putting it back into government initiatives, which is actually, I think, an ideal way to go. It doesn't quite go that way in our country, to be honest, because of course the government doesn't own the natural resources for the most part. Um, yeah, so I don't actually. In some cases we do have um, really good products that we do export, import, and stuff, and we do. I mean, obviously the government makes some degree of money. Otherwise, how is it that there's so much of money that's being stolen? Um, but yeah, don't quote me on that one. Um, but yeah, uh, so these are the critical success factors for your national e-government strategies, and these are your critical success factors for your national e-strategy. So I know it's unfortunately very similar terminology. I do want to show you guys this really short video, which talks about e-governance in Kenya, because I think they are quite close to us in terms of where they are. So it's this one here.
In the last 5 years, the government introduced digital platforms like eCitizen, iTax, and MyGov to improve service delivery to Kenyans. Platforms like eCitizen enabled citizens like Peter to renew his driving license within minutes. However, while investigating the use of these digital platforms, we found that citizens are still struggling to access these services. This is attributed to the lack of educational awareness on how to use these platforms, general digital skills, and additionally, high cost of internet-enabled devices and data to access the internet. In an effort to solve some of these challenges, educational programs and materials such as this video series, our workshop series around the various counties in Kenya, move citizens closer to being digitally savvy. As citizens, we are encouraged to go online and use these digital platforms to improve the dialogue between citizens and government.
And their internet data costs are lower than us, and they have faster internets. Believe it or not. So Kenya, I think, would also be classed in a very similar category. I think they would also be underdeveloped / developing country as well. So if we go ahead, okay, so I want you guys to now go to VC Learn, and you are going to go to more resources, and this activity over here, I do realize you guys are meeting deadlines and stuff. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give you time to think about this, and you are then going to either, you can just post the activity if you want on the thread, or we can do a discussion around it. What do you guys want to do? Do you guys want to read through this and in 15 minutes we do a discussion, or do you guys want to do the activity and we discuss your answers? Come on, guys, did you fall asleep on me? Matthew, Tane, Simon, Darren, Trevor, Nathan, what do we do? I think just read through and discuss, okay? Simon says, okay. Um, so review this example of an e-government initiative, paying particular attention to the challenges it may have faced, the role in which emerging technologies could play in the future. So if I click on this example, this is the UK's e-government website, guys. Yes, literally what you are looking at is the first world countries or developed countries e-government website. I'm not even lying. This is their e-government website. So I have to do this because it just makes, how much better does ours look? Maybe I'm a very biased South African here, but what do you guys think? I mean, our navigation is so much better. You go to this website, it looks terrible. It's the UK's website. So see, guys, we put more money into this than they did, obviously. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, guys, I'm gonna give you guys about 10 to 15 minutes to read through it. Okay, make your discussion points, and then we'll have a discussion in 15 minutes. What do you guys say? Yay or nay? Yeah. Okay, cool. Okay. Also, just